Guys, today I want to talk to you guys about the biggest mistake I made in dealing with the VA, or leading to the point where I was going to start dealing with the VA. So before we jump into the biggest mistake that I've made, let me give you guys a little bit of background. I spent 20 years in a combat MOS. So 5 of it was as a combat engineer driving around Iraq looking for IEDs, and the last 15 or so of it I spent as a 18 Charlie, a Special Forces engineer, creating door charges, blowing shit up, and also eating a shit ton of charges here and there. And I tell you all of this because that plays a factor into me being able to go towards the medical retirement route. Now, leading up to the point where I made the decision to retire, I was about as hard-headed as everyone else, just like you individuals watching me right now. For example, my first deployment where I ate a bunch of different IEDs, I would come back and the military would have what's called R3. That's where you go through a bunch of medical screening, you do a bunch of post-health risk assessments that we typically do after deployments, and everybody lies on those. If you know, you know, right? They'll ask you a bunch of questions about if you were exposed to certain things, if you were blown up, how you're feeling, and we always answered in a manner that keeps us under the radar. We don't want to shed any light to ourselves or to others. It's worse in the Special Forces Regiment because we are seen as these A-type superhuman beings, to where if we get injured, we don't really talk about it. We get with our medics, we see what they have, we grab a couple of shots for whatever's hurting us, and then we keep it pushing. That's what we're known to do, guys. We don't really mind the pain. We find a way to push through it. We find a way to deal with it. Now, fast forward, I'm approximately a year out from retiring, and I'm now starting to go through the medical process and dealing with the VA. Now, as I started to go through this process, I started to realize that the VA, they hire a bunch of civilians that are qualified to do certain jobs, but aren't necessarily smart when it comes to the different MOSs that are within the military. They don't know what Special Forces is, they don't know what 11 Bravo is, nor do they care. They're sitting across the desk from you and they have a job to do. And their job is to determine whether or not you meet the criteria to get certain compensation. So in my case, I went down there and I'm sitting across the desk from this lady, and I went in blind, so that's on my part, expecting her to know exactly what Special Forces was. So I'm sitting across from her and I'm telling her all these things that are wrong with me, and she kept referring to my medical records. So I'm telling her, hey, I have a messed up shoulder, torn rotator cuff, so on and so forth. And all she kept asking me was, is it in your medical records? To which I answered no, because whenever I tore my rotator cuff, I went to my medic that we have internal on the team, and he treated me then and there. Now, what saved me was the fact that it was so bad that I had to go get surgery for it. But if it was just within the team room and I didn't actually go to sick call or anywhere else to get it recorded, then more than likely the VA would not have compensated me for that injury. Then I moved down to my knee. I have a torn meniscus. Same concept. I'm sitting there and I'm telling this lady what hurts and why it hurts and what's wrong with it, and she kept referring to, is it in my medical records? And of course, all the SF guys out there watching this, you guys know damn well that we don't record anything. We don't shed light on anything unless it gets to the point where we cannot move. Again, what saved me was I had x-rays and I was scheduled for surgery. So she was able to see that, submit all that to the VA, which didn't help me out as far as getting the compensation that I deserved. Leading into the biggest mistake that not only I make, but everyone out there make that's in special operation, is we fail to report and record the injuries that we sustain. And I'm here to tell you, man, like, I just went through this process approximately 3 months ago. The VA, the civilians that work for the VA, they don't give a shit about you being Special Forces, you being a Ranger, you being in 160th, you being Delta. They don't give a fuck, man. So I'm urging you guys to go to sick call. I get it, right? I fucking hated sick call. I didn't want to be a sick call Ranger. That wasn't me. And I'm telling you right now, I paid the price for it on the back end. I had to do 3 times the work just to get to the point where I got my 100%, because I failed to go to sick call when it was hurting and I failed to record it. You might think you're brave and you're a superhero now and you don't want to get any of that stuff recorded. But once you hit 19, 20, 21, 22, and it's time for you to retire, good luck remembering all the shit that happened 20 years ago. You won't, man, and you won't get compensated for it. So I'm sharing this mistake with you guys because I don't want you guys to repeat the same process and fall into the same trap that I did. Even if you don't feel like it, man, go to sick call and just get it annotated. Because when it's time for you to retire, to take care of your family and yourself for the rest of your life, if it's not in your record and if it's not on paper, the VA doesn't care, man. They won't pay you for it. They won't compensate you for it. So I'm hoping in sharing this with you guys, it will take a little bit of your ego out of the process, and you'll start going to your PA to sick call and start documenting all this stuff, especially as you approach retirement, guys, because if you don't have it, the VA doesn't care and they won't give you the compensation that you deserve. If you as a retiree or if you as a soldier have dealt with that in the past, share it in the comment section below, guys. I just feel eager to share this with all the guys that are prepping for retirement behind me so they don't have to deal with the same thing that I dealt with. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next.